This is sort of a bonus video. We'll call it Subnetting Video 23. Although I hadn't really planned to do this, I thought it might be fun, and not just fun, but very informative, to look and see what this subnetting stuff that we've been doing looks like on a network. So let's do that. I'm going to call up here a network that I've created in a Cisco Packet Tracer. This is just a simulation, some simulation software that allows us to hook things up and actually make it communicate and make it run. I have here two routers which I've connected together, and then I've connected those, each router to a switch, and then each switch to a PC. So I've got, you see, a couple of networks here, network here, and let's do some subnetting and then apply it and see if we can make this all talk. Now you can see that these green lights here, they're kind of flashing once in a while. These green lights indicate that talking is going on right now. Well, how in the world are they able to communicate now when I haven't even put an IP address on these PCs yet? Well, it's because these are on a local network here, and on a local network they can communicate by MAC address. So they are communicating right now. However, you can see up here that this is all, these little lights here are all red, which means there's no communication going on here, which means I can't talk, say PC here cannot talk, PC1 cannot talk to PC3, and so forth. The first thing I want to do here is to kind of identify what our needs are. And so let's do that. We can see that we have two PCs on this network and two PCs on this network. But is that going to be enough hosts? Let's actually label our hosts here. I'll label this one host 1. Host 1, that'll be here. Whoops, I moved the wrong thing there. Host 1. We'll label this one host 2, like that. We'll label this one, well, let's label up here. You see, we also need a host here. Remember that every node on the router, in fact, this is going to be the default gateway, but every node on a router also requires a host number. The network number itself, in fact, let's identify this network. Let's call this network 1. This is our first network here. This whole thing, everything off of this router is one network. And this is one host, that's a host, this is also a host. Now the network number itself, that is, I should say the network address itself, cannot be used anywhere. And that's why this one has to be a separate host. So we called it host 3 over here. Now let's look at this network on this side. We'll call this network 2. Network 2, like that. Network 2 has also 3 hosts on it, as you can see. We have a host here, host 1, we have a host here, host 2, and we have a host up here, host 3, like that. So we have 3 hosts here on network 2, because this has to be labeled as a host. And I see that 3 kind of stuffs together there. I'm going to, same thing happened down here, but I'll just separate them out a little bit to make it a little easier to read those, because I don't know why it crams them together quite that bad. So do we need 2 networks? Well, no. We actually have 3 networks here. There's a third network right here. Oops. A third network right here. This is network 3. Let's get rid of those spaces there. This is network 3 up here, because we have to have an IP address here and an IP address here. Alright, so we actually have 2 hosts that we have to have from router to router. Alright, now let's take a look at our chart and see what we have here. I'm going to give us a 10.0.0.0/8 network and say that we need 3 hosts per network. I need 3 hosts per network, and I need at least 3 networks as well. Well, now I could start at this end and start in the second octet, but what I really care about most is just how many hosts per network I need. And I only need 3 hosts per network. So let's take a look down here and say, well, I can't get any out of here because I have to subtract 2, remember, from each of these. I have to subtract 2 in order to get the network. Whoops. There we go. In order to get the number of hosts. 2 minus 0 is 0. I can't get any hosts there. 4 minus 2 is 2. I could get 2 hosts if I use this particular column, but 2 hosts is not enough. I need 3 hosts per network, so I'm going to use this column right here. I can get 6 hosts per network if I use that column. So let's go ahead and shade that gray so we can remember that we're using this column right here in order to get up to 3 hosts per network. Now let's do what we've been doing here in our last videos. I'm going to go ahead and network this thing out. Let's just call this Subnet 1, Subnet 2, and Subnet 3. That corresponds with Subnet 1 here, Subnet 2 here, and Subnet 3 up here. The network address that we're going to start with is 10.0.0.0, like that. And we're going to increment by 8. Remember, this is the increment. We're going to increment by 8 in the 4th octet. So in the 4th octet, we'll increment by 8. 10.0.0.8. And now 8 more. 10.0.0.16. And you can see I already put this in. I forgot to take it out. I had it in earlier. But the next one would be 24 if I were going to give one just for accounting purposes so that I can get this broadcast address. 16 plus 8 is 24. I had to remake the video because something went wrong the first time, so that's why I already had that here. Alright, let's put in our broadcast addresses. If this is 24, then the broadcast address is 23. If this is 16, then the broadcast address is 15. And if this is 8, then the previous broadcast address would be 7. What about the first usable? Well, 10.0.0.1. And the last usable here, 10.0.0.6. The first usable here, 10.0.0.9. And the last usable would be 14. First usable here would be the one after 16, so that's 10.0.0.17. And the one here, 10.0.0, we have 23, so this would be 22. How about our subnet mask? Well, again, we read it right off the chart. It's going to be /29, which is 248 in the 4th octet. 248 in the 4th octet. So I'm going to go ahead and write these all the way out. And I'm doing that for a reason you'll see in a few minutes. Alright, we have what our network's going to look like. I can get rid of this 24 now. We have what our network's going to look like once everything's all said and done. Right? Not a problem there. I'm going to try and make that smaller so it all fits better, but I guess you can see it. Now, the next thing is to start planning where we're going to put these things. Well, the network address itself, I cannot use. Let's choose that. The network itself, address itself, is not usable. I can't assign it to something. It's just the network address. The network 2 address is 10.0.0.8. The network 3 address, it looks like, is 10.0.0.16. That's the network address. All right, I cannot use those on hosts. The first usable address I have here is 10.0.0.1. Well, let's put the 1. Let's always put the first one here on the router. So let's put the 1 on the router. And so H3 here, actually I'll put it this. By the way, I didn't tell you these things here. These little numbers you see here are the interface identification, so that when I go to configure these, I know what interface to configure them on. So I put the interfaces in here so I could remember as I start configuring them. So let's put the first address here on the router. This will be, by the way, also our default gateway. 10.0.0.1 on our subnet 1 here, network 1. This interface will have a 10.0.0.1. On our second network, our first usable address is 10.0.0.9, like that. And on our third network, well, let me see. What are we going to do here? Well, let's just put our first usable address on this one and our second usable address on the other one. So the third network, the first usable, let's put 17, which is right here, the first usable address. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. And on the second one, we'll put the second usable address, which would be 10.0.0.18. I can use any addresses in this range, but I'll just put them right next to each other. And let me put this up here so that it doesn't, so we can read it a little bit better. All right, I think I have, let's see, I've got addresses here, here, here. Oh, I don't have the PCs. If this is 1, then let's make this, we have to make them somewhere between 2 and 6. So let's make this one 2. Let's make this one right here 10.0.0.2. And we'll make this one 10.0.0.3. That's also in the first subnet. 10.0.0.3. H1 over here, or host number 1 over here. This is on our second network. So we'll use, let's see, we used up 9 here for the router. So we'll use 10 for this one. And since we use 10, we'll just use 11 for this, because that's in the range between 9 and 14. So for this one, we'll put 10.0.0.11. There we go. So I have 3 addresses, one here, one here, one here. 3 addresses over here, one here, one here, one here, and then 2 addresses between these, one here and one here. And I've got this all planned. Now the only thing I have left is to assign these. So let's do that. And by the way, this video is going to violate a principle of mine. I try to keep them under 15 minutes. This is going to run a little bit longer than that, but so be it. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and assign a static IP address to this of 10.0.0.2. 10.0.0.2. The subnet mask is 255.255.255.248. Oops. Yeah. And we need a default gateway so it knows how to communicate out. And here's our default gateway, the where it connects to the router, 10.0.0.1. Just like that. We don't need the DNS server address for our purposes right now. So we got one PC ready. Let's do our second PC here. 10.0.0.3. The subnet mask, 255.255.255.248. The default gateway for this PC is also right here, 10.0.0.1. And that's all we need for that. PC 3. Let's do that one. Static IP address. And we said we're going to put 10.0.0.10 on that. Subnet mask, of course, 255.255.255.248. The default gateway for this PC is this router interface, 10.0.0.9. We don't need a DNS server there. Now the fourth PC. And don't worry if you don't understand this interface. This is part of Packet Tracer, and so I'm just showing you that I'm putting an IP address on these PCs. 10.0.0.11, we said down here. The subnet mask, of course, is the 255.255.248, and the default gateway is this router interface, 10.0.0.9. 10.0.0.0.0.9. Okay. I believe that's all of our PCs now. All we have to do is get these routers talking. Now, again, you're not going to understand what I'm doing here, and that doesn't matter for now. Just be aware that I'm setting up these IP addresses so that these things can start talking on these networks. The first thing I have to do is to enable my ability. In other words, I'm going to just bring myself to the capability of being able to edit this thing. So I'm going to enable the editing, and now I'm going to turn on configuration mode. Don't be concerned about what I'm doing. What I'm going to do here is that is to say, I should say, don't be concerned about these commands. All right, I'm just doing the commands as I know them, and you don't have to learn them for now. I'm going to enter the configuration for this interface. So interface FA, I believe this is 0/0. So I'm now in the interface configuration mode, and all I have to do is put on this IP address. IP address 10.0.0.1, which is what we said here, and we need a subnet mask of 255.255.255.248. That should work. The last thing I need to do is to start up this interface, and the command is no shutdown. It starts it up. That's kind of a funny command, but you see this turned green now. Now this one isn't green yet, but don't worry. What it's doing. Excuse me, I have an itch in my nose. What it's doing is setting up the communication here, and this will turn green in a moment. Let's get this side going, shall we? We'll do the same thing over here. Enable, configure that, and then I need to go into the interface. Interface, this is, what was this one? FA00 again, okay. FA00, and I'll put the IP address on there. What is the IP address we want? 10.0.0.9. IP address 10.0.0.9 with a subnet mask of 255, got too many 5s in there, 255.248. And we have to turn it on. In order to turn it on, we say no shutdown. And now that one has turned green and it's ready to go. All right, let's go into this. As long as I'm on this one, let's go into the serial interface. So I'm going to go interface. This is SE20. It looks like it's called, and the IP address is 10.0.0.18. And our subnet mask is the same. 255.255.248. That's because we are using the same subnet mask for all three networks. And so once I've got that up, I just do the no shut to turn on that interface. Now it stayed red. Why did it stay red this time? Well, with a serial interface, it turns out we have to have something on the other side in order for it to work. So I have to do that here as well. I'm going to change to interface SE20, and once I'm in that interface, I'll do the IP address 10.0.0.17, we said, with a subnet mask 255.255.255.248, and no shut. And now you see they turned green. And so we now have everything running, everything's green here, and we have a happy network. And everything, all these PCs can now communicate with everything else. So this is what it actually looks like. So when you see these numbers, you see what we're doing. We're actually saying, well, how am I going to tell this PC and this router what network it's on? Well, by the network address and by the subnet mask, it now knows what the network addresses are and so forth. And by the way, what happens? This is an interesting question. What happens if I try to put a network address or a broadcast address on. I'm going to go back into this, as a matter of fact, just for fun. I'm going to switch back to, let's say, network 1. Yeah, network 1. And I'm going to try to put the broadcast address on this interface right here. So I'm going to go interface FA00. Get into that. Oops, I typed it wrong. Interface FA00 to get into that interface. And now watch me try to put the broadcast address on that interface. Let's see what happens here. IP address 10.0.0.7, 255, 255, 255, 248, and let's press enter and see what happens. Bad mask 29 for address 10.0.0.7. You can see it simply will not let me put that on. I can't do it. What if I try the same command, but this time I go back and I try to put on the network address 10.0.0.0. Will it let me do that? Let's see. Nope. Bad mask 29 for address 10.0.0.0. It recognizes that I am on the network address, not on a usable address for that interface. Pretty cool, huh? Alright, that's it for this video. I know we're over time on this one, but I thought this would be an informative exercise. And by the way, this is red simply because of the type of line it is. It doesn't turn green. Just these nodes turn green. Alright, that's it for video 23, and have a great week.